Hello, hello, hello. Jordan Chariton live. Status Coup. Breaking news. Breaking news. As I predicted many, many times, Donald Trump has been indicted on the classified documents case. Let me wait for more folks to trickle in here to the broadcast. Do I have the poll in the shot? Hold on. Yeah, I do. 1 second. Let me wait. All right. Smash the like button. Share this live stream. Obviously, we are coming live due to the breaking news that just broke, I don't know, 10 minutes ago. I'll wait till we hit over 100 because I don't want to have to repeatedly start over. But needless to say, Donald Trump has been indicted. He will appear in court in southern Florida on Tuesday. My expectation is we will know probably by tomorrow what the nature of the charges are, because generally people were in the know. We're talking about the indictment actually coming out on Friday, but not to be big-footed and to begin the fundraising drive that Donald Trump wants to do for this indictment and his clear campaign of victimhood to try and use these indictments to help his political and presidential campaign. Trump ended up announcing it himself. Let me read you, if you have it, Colin. I could just pull it up. So this is Trump truthing on Truth Social. The corrupt Biden administration has informed my attorneys that I have been indicted seemingly over the boxes hoax. So another hoax, Trump calls it. Even though Joe Biden has 1,850 boxes at the University of Delaware, additional boxes in Chinatown, D.C., with even more boxes at the University of Pennsylvania, and documents strewn all over his garage floor where he parks his Corvette, and which is, quote, secured by only a garage door that is paper thin and open much of the time. This is his new thing, bringing up Chinatown. He brought it up on Fox recently and mentioning that it's filled with Chinese people. So he had to get in the racism there. But he announced his indictment, which presumably he was informed of this afternoon or tonight. He continues, I have been summoned to appear at the federal courthouse in Miami on Tuesday at 3 p.m. I never thought it possible that such a thing could happen to a former president of the United States who received far more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country and is currently leading by far all candidates, both Democrat and Republican, in polls of the 2024 presidential election. I am an innocent man, all caps. This is indeed a dark day for the United States of America. We are a country in serious and rapid decline, but together we will make America great again. And Colin, if you're there, I don't know if you had time today to get that clip I asked you for. Just text me if you didn't have time, the clip of my previous predictions on this. Because if we have that, wouldn't mind taking a victory lap. But if we don't, that's okay too. The thing I asked you about on my previous comments. So we don't know the nature of the charges right now. We just know that the indictment is in the Southern District of Florida in Miami. I presume that we will know more about the charges tomorrow. I presume somebody unsubscribed. I'm so sorry to Trump supporters who are triggered by me reporting the news that your fearless leader has been indicted now for a second time. But we're going to get into what we do know and, my thoughts on, obviously, how this affects the political landscape. Legally, I'm not going to pretend to be a lawyer, but I will tell you what I think is very likely happens with Trump. and how this affects the 2024 campaign. Let me read for the New York Times. They have a story already up on his indictment, possibly with a little bit more information. Hold on. Justice Department charges Trump in documents case. The indictment filed Thursday in federal district court in Miami is the first time in U.S. history a former president has faced federal charges. So that's in reference to the New York case with Stormy Daniels was the state of New York. It wasn't a federal indictment. The Justice Department took the legally and politically momentous step of lodging federal criminal charges against former President Trump. Multiple people familiar with the matter said on Thursday, following a lengthy investigation of his handling of classified documents that he took with him upon leaving office and obstructing the government's efforts to reclaim them. And remember, there was a grand jury in this case. So presumably the grand jury referred Trump and came to the conclusion of an indictment, which then the federal government and the Department of Justice is carrying out. The indictment filed in federal district court in Miami is the first time in American history a former president has faced federal charges. It puts the nation in an extraordinary position, given Mr. Trump's status, not only as a one-time chief executive, but also as the frontrunner of the 2024 GOP presidential nomination to face President Biden. It wasn't immediately known what specific charges Trump is facing. One person briefed on the matter said there were 7 counts. So those are 7 federal counts. And those could range, we're just guessing at this point, from obstruction of justice. They might include illegal retention of national defense information. Could be a charge based on the Espionage Act. We'll just have to wait and see. My strong thought is we will see the actual indictment by tomorrow afternoon. That'll be Friday afternoon. Mr. Trump is expected to surrender himself in Miami on Tuesday. The indictment filed by the Office of the Special Counsel Jack Smith came about 2 months after local prosecutors in New York filed more than 30 felony charges against Trump in a case connected to a hush money payment. Mr. Smith is also investigating Trump's wide-ranging efforts to retain power after his election loss in 2020 and how those efforts led to January 6, 2021, assault on the Capitol by a pro-Trump mob. Public filings in the document case have painted a picture of Trump repeatedly stonewalling efforts by both the National Archives and Records Administration and the Justice Department to retrieve the trove of hundreds of sensitive government records that the former president took with him from the White House and kept mostly at his private club and residence in Florida, Mar-a-Lago. While the nature of a few of the documents found in Mr. Trump's possession is known, he had held on to letters from North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. It remains unclear what other classified materials were found. So let's just look at the last couple days. We saw Mark Meadows, Trump's former chief of staff, was appearing before the grand jury. It wasn't clear if that was in reference to the Department of Justice's investigation into Trump over January 6th or the Department of Justice investigation into Trump over the classified documents. Could be both. And I guess we'll have a little fun here. It won't be so fun if you're a Trump supporter watching, but.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Ladies and gentlemen.
Losers. They're just losers. They're losers. They're just losers.
Bing, 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 bing.
So let's rewind here. And by the way, I don't really have a lot of tolerance for the Trump supporters. Happy to have you as a subscriber. But if this were anybody else than Donald Trump, I think most of you who might be supporting Donald Trump, looking at this objectively, would say there is a lot of smoking guns here and a lot of evidence that would probably put hold on. That would probably put most people behind bars long ago. So if we remember, Trump left office in January 2021 after trying to overthrow the election results. Within the first year of his time outside of the White House, the National Archives reached out to him because they caught wind that he had a lot of documents They did not know they were classified at that point. Trump returned 15 boxes in January of 2022. So this was last year. The National Archives realized a lot of those documents were classified. They then reached out to Donald Trump and his people to make sure they had all the documents back. Trump was stonewalling on returning all the documents, so they referred it to the Department of Justice. Then Trump was subpoenaed for the documents. Was it before or after? I think he was subpoenaed after the Department of Justice sent an official down to Mar-a-Lago in June of 2022. FBI officials went with the Department of Justice. There, Trump's lawyer handed over like a sealed envelope with almost 40 classified documents, and a lawyer signed their name that this was everything that they were returning. They showed the DOJ and the FBI a storage area that they claimed this is where all the classified documents are, but they would not let the DOJ lawyers look through the classified documents. And then, as I said, because I've covered this for a couple months now, clearly after the June meeting, where they were given almost 40 classified documents, somebody started squealing down at Mar-a-Lago, and somebody tipped off the Department of Justice that there was a whole lot of other documents in Mar-a-Lago, and I believe provided either photos or surveillance footage to the DOJ showing that they had basically lied. Trump's lawyers had lied to the DOJ that everything was returned. Because remember, to get the probable cause and the search warrant to raid Mar-a-Lago in August of 2022, they had to prove to a judge that a crime had been committed to get that probable cause for a search warrant, or to get the search warrant showing probable cause. So clearly, a lot of this was leaked out drip by drip to the New York Times, the Washington Post, others, by the Department of Justice, by the FBI. But there was one thing after the other. There was news stories that Trump had classified documents related to human sources, i.e. spies. That would mean Trump had documents lying around with the identities of U.S. spies. It just so happened that in 2021, about half a year after he left office, there was an increase in U.S. spies being identified and killed abroad. We don't know if that's linked to any of the documents he had. Trump also had documents about the intelligence programs or nuclear programs. We don't know if it was over our allies or foreign governments. There's been new reporting that it was linked to Iran. I want to show you this most recent thing, which I think when I saw this, I said, I'm pretty sure he's being indicted soon. So this is Trump workers moved Mar-a-Lago boxes a day before the FBI came for documents. New details, including alleged, quote, dress rehearsal for moving sensitive papers, show a focus on Donald Trump's instructions and intent. Two of Donald Trump's employees moved boxes of papers the day before an early June visit by FBI agents and a prosecutor to the former president's Florida home to retrieve classified documents in response to a subpoena, timing that investigators have come to view as suspicious and an indication of possible obstruction, according to people familiar with the matter. Trump and his aides also allegedly carried out a, quote, dress rehearsal for moving sensitive papers even before his office received the May 2022 subpoena, according to the people familiar with the matter who spoke on the condition of anonymity. Prosecutors, in addition, have gathered evidence indicating that Trump at times kept classified documents in his office in a place where they were visible and sometimes showed them to others. There's one of two ways getting this evidence. Either you have surveillance footage showing Trump in his office with classified documents, waving them around to God knows who, or you got a couple witnesses saying they saw it. And these are clearly people at Mar-a-Lago. My strong suspicion is some of the DOJ's witnesses are Secret Service agents themselves, who, by the way, Secret Service agents, part of their job legally is to report crimes. Taken together, the new details of the classified documents investigation suggest a greater breadth and specificity to the instances of possible obstruction found by the FBI and the Justice Department that have been previously reported. It also broadens the timeline of possible obstruction episodes that investigators are examining, a period stretching from events at Mar-a-Lago before the subpoena to the period after the FBI search. The timeline may prove crucial as prosecutors seek to determine Trump's intent in keeping hundreds of classified documents. Of particular importance to investigators in the classified documents case is evidence showing that boxes of documents were moved into a storage area on June 2nd, just before Senior Justice Department lawyer Jay Bratt arrived at Mar-a-Lago with agents. The June 3rd visit by law enforcement officials was to collect materials in response to the May 2022 grand jury subpoena demanding the return of all documents with classified markings. John Irving, a lawyer representing one of the two employees who moved the boxes, said the worker did not know what was in them and was only trying to help Trump valet Walt Nauda, who was using a dolly or hand truck to move a number of boxes. So the fact that, the DOJ and the FBI are coming on June 3rd and you're moving all these boxes into a storage area, where were all of these documents before that you were abruptly going to get them and move them all into a storage area that you then wouldn't let the DOJ or FBI go into the storage area and look through the documents? Then you have this, I believe was last week, audio of Trump from 2021 stating that he had classified documents on, I believe it was on Iran, and acknowledging that he wanted to share it with people, but there were certain restraints, meaning he didn't declassify them, and him stating they were classified. Here's a tweet thread. This is from Ryan Goodman, who used to be an attorney, I believe, let me see, at the Pentagon. So not a really big fan of the U.S. Pentagon, but this guy, I've seen him on TV, seems to know what he's talking about. Audio recordings in which Trump acknowledges he held on to a classified Pentagon document about a potential attack on Iran. The audio recording is a meeting with several people who don't have security clearances. So that's a problem right there. If Trump discussed contents of documents, it is even worse and raises its own criminal exposure. These individuals are all likely good witnesses with disincentive to lie, given their number. This happened at Trump's club in Bedminster, New Jersey, with two people working on the chief of staff, Mark Meadows, as well as aides employed by the former president, including communications specialist Margot Martin. The attendees, sources said, did not have security clearances that would allow them to access classified information. So the key here is, and this is very important, he's talking audio recording in which Trump acknowledges he held on to a classified Pentagon document about a potential attack on Iran. Did he have that document with him at Bedminster in New Jersey? Because if he did, that indicates that he had classified documents in multiple places that he wasn't supposed to, not just Mar-a-Lago, but his club in New Jersey. Bedminster. The audio recording shows prosecutors are not only looking at Trump's actions regarding classified documents recovered from his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida, but also at what happened at Bedminster, summer 2021. That's where the meeting occurred. War plans are among the most highly classified documents, put pressures on DOJ to indict and a jury to convict. As CNN reporting notes, this recording also goes to show knowledge and intent. The recording indicates Trump understood he retained classified material after leaving the White House. The recording also appears to knock a hole in an already very weak defense of declassification. Quote, on the ruling, Trump's comments suggest he would like to share the information, but he's aware of limitations on his ability post-presidency to declassify records. Make no mistake, this is squarely an Espionage Act case. It is not simply an obstruction case. There is now every reason to expect former President Trump will be charged under 18 U.S.C. 793 of the Espionage Act. The law fits his reported conduct like a hand in glove, and that Espionage Act states one who willfully retains the same and fails to deliver it to the office or employee of the United States entitled to receive it. Prosecutors do not need to show motive for conviction, but it helps with a jury. CNN reports suggest motive to hold on to docs as trophies to use to settle scores or to try to regain control over the narrative. Here to try in vain. New York Times corroborated the CNN story. Trump then began referencing a document that he had with him, saying it was compiled by General Milley and related to attacking Iran, that he had it with him. So, I mean, between the drip of the last few days, and feel free, by the way, to leave super chats. I'll read them at the end. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, also smash that like button so we can get this to more people that we're live. We're not usually live at this time. I think it's really the fact that there's an audio tape with him saying, yeah, I have these documents on Iran's war plans, but I'd like to share them. That is motive. We don't know why he would like to share them, but he's saying I'd like to show them around. But there's certain restraints because it's classified. I mean, there goes I waved a Harry Potter's wand and they were all declassified, whenever I thought it. I mean, that doesn't make sense. And to conservatives out there, if you're watching, I mean, if Biden said that, Obama said that, Bill Clinton said that, you'd be calling for them to be thrown into solitary confinement for the rest of their lives. So have a little consistency. And by the way, you're talking to someone who thought Hillary Clinton should have been indicted over, the private server and all that jazz. You're talking to somebody who thinks Hunter Biden should be indicted. The Biden case that Trump is trying to make apples to apples is not apples to apples. From everything we know, Biden and Pence had classified documents from their time as vice president in their homes. But, when the government asked for them back, they didn't obstruct it. They didn't need to be subpoenaed for it to return them. They gave open access to the FBI to come and search. Trump stonewalled the National Archives for over a year, then lied through his lawyers, stating that everything had been returned after he was subpoenaed to return everything. When the DOJ and the FBI came there, Trump's people showed them the storage room that we now know they moved a shit ton of boxes with classified documents into that storage room the day before. So we don't know where they moved them from. For all we know, they were documents hanging out by the pool at Mar-a-Lago. God knows who was coming out and who had access to them. So it's not the same thing. To me, I also don't know the nature of what documents Biden had, what Pence had. But here, clearly when Trump is returning 15 boxes of classified documents, and then Trump is in June, his lawyers gave them a sealed envelope with 35 classified documents. But then when they raided him in August, they find over 100 classified documents. Clearly, there was a choice to keep. Trump chose to keep certain documents. And there has been reporting that Trump went through them himself. So, picking through, we'll give this back, we'll keep this. So, to me, the devil's in the detail. What did he keep? Yes, Kim is still on this channel. She's hosts 2 Wednesdays out of the month. She is now doing every other Wednesday. So she'll be back next Wednesday. There's just damning evidence here. And honestly, I'm not somebody who bows down to the U.S. military. I think the U.S. military is a force for all sorts of evil all over the world. You want to talk about the smoke that's engulfing D.C., New York City, all the East Coast right now because of the Canadian wildfires. The Pentagon is the biggest contributor to the climate inferno in the world. The U.S. Pentagon, the U.S. military, is the biggest contributor to the climate crisis, period, over any other source. But at the same time, you don't just lazily believe whatever the Department of Justice or the FBI tells you. You want to see evidence for it. Well, we've seen evidence because there's been document after document after document, leak after leak after leak dripping out from the Department of Justice. And it would be pretty breathtakingly stupid for them to be filing all these documents month after month, leaking all these things to the Washington Post and New York Times if it was all invented out of thin air. Clearly, they have receipts for these things. And basically, Trump has basically admitted to the crimes by going on national TV, which no lawyer would have told him to do, and stating, I have the power to keep the documents if I want. I have the power to take them from the White House. He didn't state, and he also never answered whether he showed them to others. So, yeah, I mean, politically, this is pretty damning, absolutely damning. Legally, I mean, it's pretty damning for Trump. I also would like to show you this. Trump's lawyer was reportedly waived off searching office for secret records. Evan Corcoran said he was steered away from Trump's office, where the FBI later found the most sensitive materials. Donald Trump's lawyer tasked with searching for classified documents at Mar-a-Lago after the Justice Department issued a subpoena told associates that he was waived off from searching the former president's office, where the FBI found the most sensitive materials anywhere on the property. The lawyer, Evan Corcoran recounted that several Trump aides had told him to search the storage room because that was where all the materials that had been brought for the White House at the end of the Trump's presidency ended up being deposited. Corcoran found 38 classified documents in the storage room. He then asked whether he should search anywhere else like Trump's office, but was steered away. Corcoran never searched the office and told prosecutors the 38 papers were the extent of the materials. So sounds like either Trump directly or through his lackeys lied to his lawyer, said, nope, that's where everything is. And then when the FBI came 2 months later, they found 100 more documents, including in his desk, in his office, including in the vestibule, like outside his office. So this lawyer, by the way, was forced to testify and be interviewed by the Department of Justice, which is pretty rare in America's legal system, which we, by the way, only have a legal system that usually only protects rich white people. If they actually go after rich white people, most of the time they get the bed and breakfast treatment, like Jeffrey Epstein, who got allowed to, was imprisoned, but had a bed and breakfast stay in prison, was allowed to leave the prison every day to go to his work release, to work at his office, where he had women and underage girls come and give him massages while a prisoner. Yes. Then you had the farmer bro, Martin Shkreli, who got out of jail after 4 years. Michael Cohen barely served any jail time for his crimes. I could go down the list. Obviously, no banker that destroyed our global economy over a decade ago has ever seen a prison cell. Fossil fuel executives have never been arrested for horrible leaks that poison the water, air, and animals. I could go on. Pharmaceutical executives, on and on we go. And I'll tell you what I think is going to end up happening with Trump. But at the end of the day, if you're waving off your lawyer from going to search Trump's office, to me, that's coming at Trump's direction. And that's coming because Trump doesn't want to give back certain documents. And also, something I said a while ago. Oh, hold on. Now getting an update. ABC News. The charges include willful retention of national defense information, which is the Espionage Act. So this is serious shit. Donald Trump is being indicted under the Espionage Act. Let me get this. We're learning from our sources. This is ABC News. We're learning from our sources that there appears to be at least 7 counts here. This ranges from everything from the willful retention of national defense information to conspiracy to a scheme to conceal to false statements and representations. That would probably be the false statements his lawyers made that all the documents had been returned. If they're saying it's a conspiracy, that means Trump was involved or leading it. But yeah, this is the Espionage Act, which, by the way, has been abused throughout U.S. history, is currently being abused against Julian Assange, who should not be in prison, who should have been released years ago, as Ron Pacone covered earlier for us on the 5 o'clock live stream. Unfortunately, Julian Assange lost what is likely his final appeal before. My dad's calling. He's probably pissed because he's a Trumper. Okay. I don't want to answer my dad while I'm talking to you fine people, but he's probably not happy. But yeah, Trump's being charged with under the Espionage Act. So that's serious business. Off the top of my head, I think that's between 20 and 30 years, possibly. We'll see if, I believe, obstruction will also be included in those charges. So there's a smorgasbord here, a smorgasbord of charges likely coming. Let me see if there's any other updates here that I could find for you. And keep smashing that like button. Super chats are appreciated. Hold on. Ryan Goodman. Yes, I'll show you this. Espionage Act. ABC News, the charges include willful retention of national defense information. That offense fits the alleged conduct, a perfect match. So that could be anything. I mean, it could be the Iran war, the plans, a war plan against Iran. Like I said earlier, he also had documents identifying human sources, which are spies. Could have had other programs. And I think the key here is, and I hate to bring up a COVID term because that triggers some people, but if you all remember in the beginning and core of COVID, they called it contact tracing, where we need to do contact tracing, where if somebody had COVID, you then have to go through all the contacts they had. I mean, it's literally not possible in a place like New York City, DC, busy cities, but CDC and others, when they were trying with COVID, did the best they could. Well, this was not just a criminal investigation into, did Trump violate the Espionage Act? Did Trump either illegally withhold these documents, lose any of these documents, illegally show them to others who didn't have the classification? But you also had to do contact tracing. Who was coming and going out of Mar-a-Lago, and where were the documents when those people were there? I mean, in Mar-a-Lago, you have everybody from athletes to politicians to actors to foreign dignitaries. So they had to kind of do both at the same time, trying to move up the food chain, trying to turn witnesses or turn Trump people and people from Trump world into witnesses, trying to get the surveillance footage and trying to find out who the hell was there and who had access to the documents. Some of the witnesses for the DOJ might be Trump friendlies that then turned on Trump saying, yeah, I was in his office and I saw these documents. Or I was laying by the pool and I saw documents. I mean, I'm being playful with the pool example, but you get my point. So they had to do more than one thing, not just investigating whether Trump broke the law, but investigating who was coming and going out of Mar-a-Lago. It's very likely that Mark Meadows, his former chief of staff, turned on Trump in this case, because Mark Meadows is looking at serious jail time, both for January 6th and possibly the classified documents case. I believe some of the witnesses had to be from the Secret Service because they're with Trump at all times and they have access to things like places like his office and elsewhere. But the proof will be in the pudding. I mean, we hope to get the indictment tomorrow, and we'll have more details about the indictment. But here is my kind of, prediction now, based on knowing that it's an Espionage Act case. And let me just get the information, quick Google search. What's the typical prison term for Espionage Act? You could be sentenced to life in prison, or economic espionage could be 15 years in prison. Well, bottom line, Trump's 75, 76. If he gets charged on espionage, that's likely the rest of his life. So assuming espionage, obstruction, 7 counts. They're throwing the book at Trump. And I think as much as Donald Trump's Donald Trump's highest addiction and top addiction in life is attention, is narcissism, is being the center of the show, is being thought of as a powerful, strong man, as a winner. That's what he's addicted to. That's what he ran for president for, and always teased running for president so he could be in the headlines. He's got a severe daddy complex, and always has had a daddy complex. But I think what outweighs Donald Trump's addiction to narcissism, Donald Trump's addiction to attention, Donald Trump's addiction to being revered and having a cult following is his deep, petrified fear of prison. I think Donald Trump would sooner kill himself than go to prison. I think it's very, very likely that Donald Trump, well, first off, before we get to that, let's get to why they're issuing this indictment now. I think they wanted to issue the indictment as early as possible before the Republican primary, because the DOJ and FBI, even though they did a pretty shitty job about it in 2016, in the case of Hillary Clinton and others, it is in their protocol and in their norms to try, if they are going to charge a candidate, to not make it appear that they are doing anything for political purposes too soon towards an election. So I think they wanted to indict Trump as far in advance of the Republican primaries as possible, so they didn't get anywhere near that date where they could be accused of trying to sway an election result. I also think their goal, or part of the thinking, is indictment as early as possible so we can get a court date as early as possible for the actual jury case to start, for the actual trial to start. I believe their goal is to start the trial in advance of the general election, which would mean obviously having to start next year before November. I think they want, if they could start the trial before the general election, they want a conviction before the general election. Because obviously this would be unprecedented, where if Trump wins the Republican nomination, which I actually think this might help him, because that's the Republican Party at this point. Trump literally can shoot someone on Fifth Avenue. I think it would make them like him more. I'm not a Democrat. I'm actually an independent. I'm a registered independent. I'm no fan of the Democratic Party. At this point, I don't know what I'm personally doing. I'm probably going to vote third party. But I personally, I think the Republican Party has, and Trump's base buys what he's selling, that everything is a hoax. It's all a conspiracy, a witch hunt, blah, 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 blah. They don't particularly care that much about the details. It's good enough when they hear, oh, Biden did the same thing, even though it's not the same thing. But what I think the DOJ is doing here is to try and get this trial started in a comfortable distance before the general election, try to get a conviction before the general election. On Trump's side, Trump, for his entire business and political career, his North Star and guiding light has been delay everything, countersue. He can't really delay this. He could appeal after the fact, but he can't really delay this. His lawyers met with the DOJ on Monday of this week, I believe, which many reporters said was an indication he was about to be indicted, because generally before, when lawyers for a defendant know he or she is about to be indicted, in many cases, they go and make a last-ditch presentation to the attorney on why their client shouldn't be indicted. That happened on Monday. But I think in Trump's case, they're going to want to delay as long as they can the start of the trial, because his goal, my only way to stay out of prison, is to get reelected president of the United States. Even if I'm convicted, does anyone here think Donald Trump wouldn't pardon himself? Which I don't even know if that's legal, but it's America. There's a lot of things that aren't legal that happen if it benefits rich white people. So I think this indictment happening now in June of 2023 is strategically to get the conviction, to get the trial and the conviction in a comfortable period of advance before the general election. I think it's very likely, and if you are Ron DeSantis right now, I think you are sitting pretty happy. I think it's very likely Trump, with after all the chest bumping, after all the beating his chest, after all the Truth Social posts, and once he gets back onto Twitter and going around, with his red hat all over the country saying he's the biggest, he's being persecuted more than anyone in American history, I think it's very likely Trump will try to make a deal. I think it's very, very likely Trump will try to make a deal. Whether the DOJ is, willing to play, that I don't know. But I think it's very likely Trump will try to make a deal. I think that deal would probably involve him dropping out of the presidential election, never being able to run for any office ever again. And since this is the United Corporations of America and there is very little justice, probably getting some type of, glorified, maybe a short term in prison. Like we're talking maybe a couple months, and then an extended house arrest, possibly no time in prison and just like a 2-year house arrest, and have like an unprecedented fine or something like that. Just so the DOJ can say no one is above the law, even though plenty of people are above the law. And if this was anybody else, you'd probably be going to prison for the rest of your life in solitary confinement. But I think Trump would make a deal. He would drop out, claim, this was the deep state. They took down our movement to make America great again. And, they might have won the battle, but they will never win the war, to avoid what should come to him, which is probably prison for the rest of his life. Could be completely wrong in terms of the DOJ actually agreeing to that. But I think Trump and his lawyers would try for that, because Donald Trump, ask anyone in New York that knows him, any of his biographers, any experts on Trump, the guy is A, claustrophobic, B, a massive germaphobe, doesn't like shaking people's hands. On the campaign trail, he had a lackey next to him after he shook people's hand to give him hand sanitizer after every hand shook. So you think this is somebody that wants to go to prison? So he'll get a short-term bump in the polls, make no mistake about it. But I think ultimately this helps DeSantis, because all he has to do is look at the long game. He's probably thinking, this is Donald Trump. He's not going to risk going to prison for 15 to 20 years. He'll drop out, and then I'll be left holding the bag. So it'll be very interesting to look at DeSantis's response to this, whether he attacks Trump, whether he says he broke the law and needs to face the consequences, or whether DeSantis jumps on to defense of Trump, distorts it and compares it to Biden and says Biden did the same thing, but he's not being prosecuted, so that he doesn't alienate Trump supporters for the potential future event of Trump dropping out and DeSantis being left, by default as the winner of the nomination. I mean, something crazier could happen, because I think DeSantis, once tested on the campaign trail, is not a strong candidate. So maybe somebody else could rise. We'll see. But that's what I think. But I am sure going to enjoy the show. Let me read this super chat. Davis, $10. Picked a hell of a time to fly to Miami tomorrow. Well, it depends how long you're going to be there. He's supposed to show up for court on Tuesday. So if you're going to be in Miami on Tuesday, I'd go. Maybe sneak a flask and enjoy the show. But before Tuesday, we will have the indictment. So we'll know specifically the nature of the charges. There's probably stuff in that indictment that we do not know yet and has not been reported. I think we'll know more on the nature of some of these documents. I don't think they'll show all of them, but I think they're going to justify indicting him specifically on the Espionage Act. They're going to have to reveal some information on the nature of these documents. I also think you'll have more information on whether he showed these documents or distributed these documents and to whom. And when you hear the term conspiracy, that indicates there was a coordinated plan to lie to the DOJ to withhold certain documents. So we'll have more of that picture painted. So, hey, I'm here for it. There will be the whataboutism out there. There will be people that minimize, supposed leftists that minimize this, just like they minimize January 6th. To me, listen, I think most presidents have committed major crimes that should put them in prison, from war crimes to crimes against working people, to, environmental crimes. Obama, what he allowed to happen to Flint and then didn't do anything for Flint. George W. Bush, in my view, should have been at The Hague a long time ago. Bill Clinton, I believe, committed crimes. So Donald Trump is not unique in terms of being a criminal. But there's like the normal crimes that presidents do and get away with. And then there's just like flagrantly taking hundreds of classified documents because you just think you can, some of which are some of the top secrets of the U.S. intelligence and military apparatus, and intelligence and military apparatus that I don't have any respect for because they killed, well, I don't want to get in trouble on YouTube. They killed a former president. You know who I'm talking about. They breathlessly lie about other stuff like Russiagate. The U.S. has been helping Saudi Arabia commit genocide in Yemen for years, has been contributing to the war in Syria for well over a decade. I don't think the U.S. is arming Ukraine for noble reasons. I think they're using Ukraine as a proxy war to try and to overthrow Putin. That doesn't mean it's okay that Putin invaded Russia. That's where I depart from some of these leftists who seem to just slobber over Putin's balls at all time. Putin's not a good guy. He shouldn't be revered. He wasn't forced to attack Russia. That's just bullshit from supposed leftists that seem just to be kind of a mouthpiece for certain autocrats they like and against other autocrats they don't like. But that's another story. So I guess let's get the poll going here. Do you think Trump will actually be convicted? I guess that's the big question. Do you think Trump will actually be convicted in this case? Let me put the poll in the chat. Super chats are welcome too. If you want to drop a super chat, by all means. Poll. Convicted. All right. The poll is up. I'm ready for the results. I'm going to guess most people think yes. Well, 21 votes. Yep. Yes is leading. Yes is leading. So let me read some more comments. Convicted per documents? Yes, convicted in the documents case. Ask if Trump will actually go to prison. I just did. Thank you, President Biden, for cleaning up Trump's mess. Well, let's not get into that. Biden has been a horror show, in my opinion. And I think Biden right now is at risk of losing to DeSantis or Trump, even with this indictment. Jayful, this is not the end of democracy. We had a civil war. There is still a democracy. We don't particularly have a democracy, really. We have a air quotes democracy, but the Electoral College right there gives away the whole democracy thing. When you don't have, majority rules or the popular vote wins. That's not a democracy. When your government is literally purchased by corporate America and what the will of the people is ignored, as we just saw in Atlanta with the Cop City protests, where the citizens of Atlanta overwhelmingly do not want this militarized police compound, Cop City, and the city council just ignored them and granted the funding. That's not democracy. So, 60 votes so far. It's narrow, but 53% say yes, Trump will be convicted. 48% say no, he will not be convicted. So we shall see. We shall see. But I'm going to enjoy the show because, as you know, we cover a lot of serious shit here. I've been to Flint 19 times. In 27 years, I've been there 19 times. Probably headed there for a 20th soon. Lewis has been on the ground covering the East Palestine train wreck and detonation, and the people getting sicker and sicker every day and every month. We're planning on sending him back next month for his 4th trip. I've reported in Kalamazoo recently. Tina has reported in Atlanta on Cop City. We're sending her back at the end of the month. We cover a lot of heavy duty stuff, and damn it, we deserve some entertainment, and this will be entertaining. And by the way, let's not forget, very likely, I mean, Trump might be indicted by the end of the summer in the Georgia case too. And then there's January 6th. I think that's a tougher case to make unless there's some smoking gun we don't know about against Trump. But Trump might be facing 3 criminal cases before one vote is cast in the Republican primary. That, you never know. I mean, I covered both Trump cases on the road. And I have interviewed countless Trump supporters in 2016, 2020. And supporters of other candidates. But the thing about the Trump base, and they're not all bad people or all racist or anything like that. I think that's an overgeneralization. But a lot of them truly, it's not about policy. It's about they see him as their leader and he's fighting their fight and going against the establishment and the deep state and draining the swamp, even though he was just as corrupt, if not more, than any other president. So all this stuff, I mean, Donald Trump, they weren't supporting him because they saw him as a bastion of morality in the first place. So the documents, the porn star, it doesn't change the equation for them. If anything, it makes him look like a martyr to them. The only thing is, if the Republican base, if their top priority at this point is actually winning the presidency, which I'm not convinced it is, if Trump's base, their top priority is beating Joe Biden, which in 2020, the top priority of Democrats was an electable candidate that could beat Trump, even if it wasn't their first choice, then maybe DeSantis and others could make the case, we're going to get our clock creamed because independents will not vote for a 3-time indicted, if he gets indicted in Georgia too, a 3-time indicted candidate. It's not going to happen. And maybe convince enough Trump supporters that you might like and respect Donald Trump, but he is going to bring us down like the Titanic because of all his criminal liability and all the drama. So let's go with someone that doesn't have the drama. That's the best case scenario. Let me read the next super chat. Gabe, $10. Hey, Jordan, you might have addressed this, but what is your opinion of Dr. West's run with the People's Party? Did Brana cut Dr. West some kind of nefarious deal? Yeah, I interviewed Renee Johnston the other day. She was a former volunteer with Movement for a People's Party. She was kind of one of the first whistleblowers, I would say, former volunteers that came out, and there were many, at all the shady shit that went on in terms of the disorganization and the mistreatment of volunteers and staff by Nick Brana. And then obviously, as I reported, there was accusations of sexual harassment. Then Zeta Day came out accusing Nick Brana of both harassment and assault. There was my reporting on Nick Brana orchestrating, basically purging half of the MPP's board right as they were calling for an urgent meeting to take action against him after an investigation was done. You know, I'll just repeat what I said. There's 2 problems. A, the moral problem, which is I think there's credible accusations against Nick Brana for sexual harassment and assault. I think there's beyond enough accounts of this guy is not a serious political organizer or political visionary. He's a super narcissist and shady character that created a People's Party, but rules with an iron fist, launched a very undemocratic system, and it is a complete shit show with no infrastructure in the People's Party, which I think is 7 years old and has never ran a candidate. So now they're going from never running any candidate on any level to running a presidential candidate. I love Cornel West, but just being charismatic and a visionary and inspirational is not going to make you president. You need an infrastructure around you. You need a really strong campaign around you, people who could fundraise, people who could organize, people who could get register new voters, do voter targeting, people who can set up events. That's what they call advanced staff. People for logistics, people for marketing, social media, the whole apparatus. I see no evidence that MPP is competent to set up one amazing event, much less a whole presidential campaign. So to me, there's two problems with it. A, Cornel West and the values he puts forth as a political thinker, as an academic, as an intellectual, but more importantly, a moral figure, that is not in sync with what I know about the People's Party. I mean, he's a big boy. He's not beyond criticism. We can't, either Cornel West didn't do his homework at all, which is bad on him, or he knows about the allegations. He knows about all the volunteers and staff that have reported very bad things about MPP, the treatment, the shadiness, the purging of volunteers, the mislabeling of those people they purged as infiltrators. If he knows about that stuff and just ignores it and just accepts it, well, that's bad on him too. So either he didn't do his due diligence or he did, and he just doesn't care. Neither is good. To those who say, whatever, Jordan, it's about the candidate, not what party is running on, I don't agree with that. I think it does matter who you associate with. I think it does matter who you're willing to lend credibility to. He's lending his credibility to People's Party. And also, just logistically, if you want to run third party, great. I don't have an issue with that. I mean, Jill Stein got on the ballot through the Green Party in 48 states. The Green Party has a lot of problems. There has been corruption, but it has won elections on the local and state level. It has showed within the last 2 election cycles that it could at least get on the ballot. So why would you reinvent the wheel when you have an existing party that could help you do it, or just run independent? As far as I know, MPP is on the ballot in 2 or 3 states. I see no evidence that they have an infrastructure, the expertise, the legal apparatus, the legal resources to get on the ballots in 48 out of 50 states. So from both the moral reasoning and the just sheer logistical running a president, competing, it's already an uphill climb if you have an organized infrastructure, campaign staff to compete as a third party candidate. But if you're running basically with a party whose infrastructure MPPs seem to be just sucking off Jimmy Dore, Kim Iverson, Jackson Hinkle, and just like messaging identical to podcasters, yeah, that's not a smart move by Cornel West. So that's what I think. Gene, $2. Hey, Jordan, hope you and Lewis get some time off. Lewis is going away. I know he's going away for a few weeks later this month. So he will have some time off. I'm hoping to get some time off towards the end of the summer. All right, folks, this was an impromptu live. I did tell my wife I'd spend more time with her tonight. So going to get going. I hope we're going to have the actual indictment tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. So I will be live again tomorrow. Once we have the actual indictment, maybe I'll have a guest. Reminder, we are growing, but we need to grow quicker. So if you are new to Status Coup, subscribe to this channel. But if you can support us as a Status Coup member, that is how we are going to continue reporting on the ground. It does not come cheap. There's a whole lot of outlets out there, particularly the independent outlets, asking people for money while they sit in a studio bloviating about the same bullshit everyone else is bloviating about. There's pretty much no one other than us. Yeah, there's pretty much no independent outlets that I know of other than us that are out there covering Flint, East Palestine, Kalamazoo, Cop City, doing reporting tours, interviewing homeless people, workers being exploited, covering union organizing, covering worker strikes. We do all of that. So please, please, if it's within your means, sign up. StatusCoup.com/join. StatusCoup.com/join for as low as $5 to $10 a month. That is how we grow. Last month, we gained about 125 paid members. This month, we're not anywhere near that yet. But we want to keep growing, because if we keep growing, that's more trips I could take. That's more trips Lewis could take. More reporting Tina could do. And it's $5 to $10 a month. $5 a month equals 16 cents a day. $10 a month equals 33 cents a day. So if it's within your means, please sign up. StatusCoup.com/join. Let me give a shout out, because we did get 2 signups a little bit earlier, I think. Welcome new member Marlene signed up, and Jackie signed up. So those are 2 members earlier today. Hopefully we get some more tonight. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a good rest of the night, and get your popcorn, folks. It's going to be a entertaining show.